Those prophetic books, phew, that's really tough to read. What's that all about? This seems like a lot that I'm supposed to remember. Could you help me out? Maybe give me a summary of it. Could you get some overarching theme to help me understand what I'm reading here? Because it seems like I'm supposed to be living a certain way here. So what would you tell them? Well, thankfully, Jesus gives us that summation. It's recorded in Matthew 7. He says, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. So it sure is nice to have, in the same way in the Ten Commandments, the first commandment in a sense is overarching the rest of the commandments. In this way, all of the law and the prophets are summarized in what's become known as the Golden Rule. And so the good news for us is no matter what interaction we have with somebody, if we're confused, we should not be confused, because the Bible directly speaks to how should I conduct myself in this interaction. And so today's exhortation, I wanted to get this back to the forefront of our mind in case it wasn't already there. But going back to that hypothetical situation where someone comes up to you and says, this Old Testament is full of laws and prophetic books. What should I do with it? Well, you can also remind them, after you remind them, yes, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Well, if the Old Testament does contain, it has a lot of laws, and the prophetic books tells us a lot that could be confusing for the new believer. But we'd want to encourage them to stick in there. For every jot and tittle, every word that's in the Old Testament reveals to us God's nature and God's character. So to remind them to hang in there, because God's character, it's a special revelation. It's not something we naturally would have known prior to him telling us about himself, to what he's revealed. But that as an aside, let's now move into breaking down what has come to be known as the Golden Rule. That's not in the Bible itself. Jesus didn't say, here's the Golden Rule. However, in James 2, he kind of rehashes this, and he calls it the royal law when he says, love your neighbor as yourself. So these are words to live by. It's kind of direct enough. Do unto others you'd have them to do unto you. Love your neighbor as yourself. So the command is simple: to you, to do, to act. So as an aside, there was a cynical dictionary written quite a while ago by a guy named Ambrose Bierce. He entitled it The Devil's Dictionary. And I only bring it up standing in a pulpit here talking about the Devil's Dictionary because he was very acutely perceptive when he, in a cynical way, he said, under the definition for Christian, what he said was, he wasn't a Christian, noun. One who believes that the New Testament is a divinely inspired book, admirably suited for the spiritual needs of his neighbor. One who follows the teachings of Christ insofar as they're not inconsistent with his own life of sin. So what's he talking about here? What he's getting at is what we're tempted to do as Christians is we take the Golden Rule and then we misapply it. Instead of do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, we twist it in our sin and say, we want to have others do unto us as we wish to be treated. So this probably won't be very difficult to imagine, but do your best here. Imagine two kids squabbling over something, both being guilty of looking out for number one. So mom brings the children aside and asks child number one, could you reflect on the Golden Rule? Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. So the child thinks about it for a second. You're right, Mom. Of course, I'm not being treated the way I want to be treated. That's exactly right. That's the Golden Rule. They're not treating me this way. Do something, can you tell this child, my sibling, to do this? Now, of course, the Golden Rule is not limited to children's squabbles. As I said before, this impacts every interaction we have with one another, whether or not we're in a conflict or not. This is a guide for us. So the overarching theme that I want to exhort us to today is that the Golden Rule has nothing to do with the other person's actions. That is, if you want to grow in personal holiness as you ponder on the Golden Rule, it only applies to you as far as you're concerned. The problem is in our sin, there's one word in the golden rule, others. And we take that in our sin and we twist it and we say, well, the word others is in there, so maybe it has something to do with the other person's actions. But the action's simple. Treat the other person in front of you the way you want to be treated. So as a secondary thing that we learn here from the golden rule is if we are about devoting ourselves to following this, doing unto others as we'd have them do unto us, it can lay bare the desires of our heart in kind of embarrassing ways if we realize we've been in sin. And what do I mean by that? Say you've had a hard day. You've not been very spiritual. Maybe you've just plowed through. It's been tough. You've grinned and bared it. And therefore, now you're really grumpy. You're grouchy. You've have some self-inflicted anxiety because you've not been working into the Lord that whole day. Instead, you've just tried to get through. So as a result, you've developed quite a bitter attitude, snapping at people. So then, for whatever reason, the golden rule comes into your head, and you think, all right, I'm supposed to treat people how others want to be treated. How do I want to be treated right now? Well, I sure would like to be left alone. I'd like to have my feet put up somewhere and maybe watch a movie, social media, sports, whatever, fill in the blanks of whatever when you're tempted to just completely veg out. That's what I want right now. And then the absurdity is laid bare. That's not how we treat one another, where we're constantly just asking them, how can I help you veg out, right? That has revealed what's going on in your heart at that moment of what your desires are. They've been misplaced. So in conclusion, the exhortation today is simple. It's to follow the golden rule. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. In the middle of your whatever conflict, there's that temptation to twist it. Yes, that other person should be treating you in the right way too. Yet that is not at all what Jesus is saying here. He is simply telling you to act, a call for action for you, to act as you wish others would treat you.